Hi, welcome to Chile Talks. This is your source of informed and relevant analysis on current trends and events in Chile and Latin America. So, for those who are new to this channel was launched as a result of biased and superficial reporting that the mainstream international media was doing of the Chilean events. Um, as you probably know, the damage that biased and often sloppy reporting results in misleading information and unwarranted international support for deceitful causes. So, well, welcome and remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share, as you will be helping us spread the truth with relevant information. Today, we're going to talk about inequality, as it has been called the root cause of this recent uprising. So, the question is it all about inequality, and can something be done about that? So let's see, as always, our review of the international media coverage and do a little reality check. So here we have the Guardian that says if Piñera wants to wage war in Chile, he should fight the real enemy, which is inequality. So let's see if that's really the case. We have the New York Times here. Trouble in paradise, Chile's inequality explodes. Then we have Financial Times, wealth gap ignites Chile protest. We have BBC News, Chile protest, is inequality becoming worse? Okay, so it seems that it's all about inequality, right? Let's see if that's really the issue. The first question that we should ask ourselves is there really an income inequality problem in Chile? So, well, let's look at data, and well, let's define also what income inequality is. The first thing is the Gini index. So that's the most often used index to measure inequality. So this information has been prepared. The one that you see on the screen is a report prepared by the World Bank. Just to remind you that the Gini index is a simple measure of the distribution of income across a population. So a higher Gini index, that means close to 100, indicates a greater inequality, and a zero index indicates perfect income equality. Okay, so we have here Gini index in 1990 of about 50, and it's been dropping since then to around 45. So that makes us a little bit more unequal than our neighbors in Argentina, for example, but it's an income inequality similar to that of Brazil or China or Mexico. Okay, so it's far from equality of European countries, which is around 25 or 30. Okay, but the US, for example, has a higher income inequality than the European countries. So we are around a level of 45. Okay, so what can we see here is that income inequality has actually been falling since the late 90s. We were at a level of 50, and now we are at a level of 45. And well, so that's the first part. Income inequality has actually been falling as measured by the Gini index. And what about the claim that the Pinochet regime and the neoliberal capitalist model was responsible for increasing income inequality? Well, to understand that, we should see what income inequality was before the Pinochet reform. Fortunately, there has been research done on that. Here we have, let's look at the Gini coefficient over the past 2 centuries. This was a report prepared by Javier Rodriguez from the Universidad de la República. And it's, as you can see, the level of income inequality is actually very similar to what it has been during our entire history as a country. You can see a drop during the 1970, which is a result of the communist regime of Allende. So, of course, we were more equal at that time, but we were also more equally poor. Okay, but in general, we are at the same level that we were 150 years ago. So no, there's no increasing level of inequality as we saw in all the media coverage in the previous slide. There is no increasing level of inequality in Chile, and as is endlessly repeated by the mainstream media. So, but don't take my word for it. Let's see what international organizations say. Here we have a recent report by the United Nations Development Programme, the UNPD, about unequal origins, changes, and challenges in Chile's social divide. This recent paper, published by the UNDP, found that inequality in Chile is not a result of this economic model, but is a structural characteristic of the Chilean socio-economic fabric, whose origin dates back to the past. The recent study also shows that in recent decades, inequality, whether measured by Gini index or other quotients, for example, the 2020 quotient or the 2040 quotient, this inequality has decreased significantly. For example, this graph here shows that on the y-axis we have the percentage growth of wages between 1990 and 2015, and the horizontal axis shows the percentile. So the bottom percentile is the poorest and the top percentile is the richest. So as we can see here in this graph, wages for the bottom 10% here has increased nearly 200% during the 1990-2015 period, while wages for the top 10% has increased around 100%. Okay, so if wages for poor people increase faster than wages for rich people, it implies a reduction in inequality. That's the definition of reduction in inequality. Let's look at another study. This one was done by the OECD, so the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and they look at inequality from a social mobility perspective, which is defined as the number of generations it takes for descendants of low-income families to reach average income. In this paper published by the OECD, we can see that social mobility in Chile is actually very similar to what it is in Germany or France. You see, here is Germany and France in terms of social mobility, so it means it takes around 6 generations for a low-income family to get to a average income family. In Chile, it takes more or less the same. Okay, so why do we hear so much about inequality? So if all the papers and research shows that there's no such thing as increasing inequality or that Chile is that much different from other countries. So why do we hear so much about inequality? So one reason could be the lack of social mobility at the very top. So Chile's wealthiest families today are nearly the same than 40 years ago. Let's take a look at this graph prepared by Fundación Sol. What you will see here are the 12 wealthiest individuals in Chile according to the Forbes ranking. And what we see here is that among the 12 wealthiest families or individuals in Chile, 7 are second or third generation inheritance. Those who are not second or third generations had strong ties to the Pinochet regime. So, for example, Sayé, which you can see here, was advisor to the central bank during the Pinochet regime, and he also worked for the Department of Public Works. Julio Ponce here, you can see here, is the son-in-law of Pinochet and is now at the head of one of the largest potassium and lithium company in the world. Piñera, here, he's also among the 12 richest Chileans. Although he did not directly participate in the Pinochet regime, his brother did, and there's a general perception that he made his fortune thanks to Pinochet. So Horst Polman, owner of a large retail company, the owner of Jumbo, he did not have strong ties to Pinochet, but he also made his fortune during his regime. So the only real newcomer in the last, let's say, 40 years or 30 years has been this person here. So let me show it to you. So it's Jan Salgata. Okay. Jan Salgata is a private equity magnate who didn't even make his fortune here in Chile. So if you look at the Forbes ranking in the US as opposed to the one in Chile, you will see that most fortunes there are all newcomers. So you have the Bill Gates, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Sergey Brin, all the tech giants. But those are first generations magnates and billionaires. Unlike Chile, where you basically have the same people you've had for the past decades. Okay. So that's one reason why there's a perception of inequality. So there is inequality actually in income, but at the very top, in the middle, it's been quite mobile, as shown by the research I presented to you. So let's see also why this perception of inequality is so strong. It is so strong because this inequality in income is also combined with a perception of inequality in the law. In the past several years, there have been multiple scandals involving this elite I showed in the previous slide. And there is a general perception that they can get away with anything while the rest is subject to strict laws and red tape. For example, for over 30 years, Sebastián Piñera, the current president, had not registered his mansion in the south, that you can see here. And thus he was not paying real estate taxes. This was discovered, was taken to trial, and he was fined $10,000 and only paid 3 of the 30 years he owed. Another case is very famous, is market manipulation case of Julio Ponce, the potassium magnate. He was fined. Well, this market manipulation resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars in losses for pension funds, so basically for all Chileans. The head of the Sokimich company was fined $70 million by the securities regulator, but the Supreme Court overturned the fine. Something like this would be unthinkable in a country such as the US. This guy would probably be in prison by now. So he got away with it because he had an army of lawyers, okay, and because of the law is weak in that sense. Another case of a mining magnate, magnate Andronico Luksic. So he's also in the list that I showed to you previously. So here you have Luksic, and this is Sebastián Dávalos, the son of former President Michelle Bachelet. And what happened here is that Mr. Luksic, through his bank, Banco de Chile, gave a soft loan to Mr. Dávalos, the son of President Bachelet, so that Mr. Dávalos could buy land that would increase in value thanks to a change in regulations, which he knew in advance would happen. So this is a case of soft loans, soft money, corruption, soft dollars also, and insider information, but he got away with it also. So there's a perception of inequality, yes, income inequality, but there's also a perception that there's inequality in the law and basically corruption and crony capitalism. So, for example, let's look at the Odebrecht case, which took down the Lula da Silva regime in Brazil. So in this Odebrecht case, Chile refused to share information with the ongoing investigation that was being made, while other countries in the region did share this information and resulted in business and political leaders sentenced to jail. That did not happen here in Chile. As a famous journalist and political commentator said, Mr. Daniel Matamala, and I will read here, politicians and opinion leaders argue here in Chile that there is a clear contrast in Chile, where there is no evidence that Odebrecht octopus had spread its corrupt tentacles to our country. That speaks well of our country, by the way, but that self-deceiving analysis falls short, because one thing is worse than having many political leaders in prison, that is, having none. So, again, there's a perception that the system is rigged, there's crony capitalism, that there are two laws, one for the elite and the other for the rest, and obviously the law for the rest is much stricter than for the elite. So this has created this perception, and by the way, this is a political elite that is among the best paid in the world, while Chile has the lowest minimum wage in the OECD. As you can see in the following slide, this is a report prepared by the Development Agency of the United Nations, so that's the PNUD. And what it shows is the salaries of the congressmen in different countries. So as you can see, Chilean congressmen are the best paid in the world, mostly. So their average salaries in terms of adjusted purchasing power parity is $24,000, or almost $25,000, while in countries like Switzerland, it's $4,600. So not only is the economic elite serving itself with the country, I mean that's a perception, but the political elite is also taking advantage of the system. And not only does the economic elite it doesn't change over the years. So as you saw, it's been the same people over 40 years. There's also very little rotation in Congress, as there's no term limit for congressmen. So, in summary, given this evidence, the logical solution would be to increase accountability of politicians and economic elites, increase sanction for economic crimes, including prison time. Another logical conclusion would be to reduce wages of politicians and encourage whistleblowing regulation, real whistleblowing regulation, like the ones that are in the US, for example. But none of that, unfortunately, is on the agenda of President Piñera right now. Instead, what we are seeing is that President Piñera is once again bowing to the extreme political left and taking populist measures designed to calm the political left, such as increasing minimum wage. I mean, no real structural reforms. As such, these solutions are only short-term, and we should expect more discontent in the future, especially when a global recession hits and the price of copper and other commodities drop, which will definitely affect all the social programs that have been implemented in the past decade. I will go over this aspects in another video, but yeah, it is a little bit disappointing. In summary, I would say though, so it's not really about inequality. It's a little bit more complex than that. There's also an issue of inequality in the law, corruption, crony capitalism. But again, it's definitely not what we see in the mainstream media about, you know, the capitalist has been increasing inequality in Chile because of the Pinochet reforms and so on. That's just, you know, nonsense. Okay, so once again, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video, as you will be helping us spread the truth with unbiased, relevant, and informed analysis. Thank you very much.